The entire school cafeteria went silent when the star quarterback walked in carrying a bouquet of roses. Everyone knew what was happening. Mason Blake never did anything halfway. He was the captain of the football team, the face of every school poster, and the guy whose name appeared on the morning announcements almost every week. If someone asked who the most popular person at Westbridge High was, 90% of students would say Mason. The other 10% would probably say Ava Mitchell. And everyone knew those two belonged together. At least, that was what everyone thought. I sat in the far corner of the cafeteria with my lunch untouched, pretending to work on my sketchbook. Pretending was something I was good at. I was Ethan Carter, the guy teachers liked because I always finished projects early. The guy classmates remembered when they needed help designing posters. The guy who took photos at school events but was rarely in them. I wasn't invisible. Invisible people didn't exist. I existed. I was just never the person anyone looked at first. Then Mason walked to the center of the cafeteria. And suddenly everyone was looking at someone else. Everyone knows I'm terrible at keeping secrets, Mason said, smiling as his teammates laughed behind him. Ava was sitting with the student council members near the windows. She looked up. Even from across the room, she looked impossible to ignore. Ava wasn't just beautiful. Beautiful was easy. Ava had confidence. She walked through school like she belonged everywhere. She was student council president, captain of the dance team, the girl teachers trusted, and the girl everyone wanted to sit beside during assemblies. People called her the prom queen before prom even arrived. Mason stopped in front of her. Ava. The cafeteria got quieter. He held out the roses. I know everyone expects me to ask you this. A few people laughed. But honestly, I don't care what everyone expects. He dropped to one knee. The entire room exploded. Phones appeared everywhere. Someone behind me whispered, "This is going viral." Mason looked up at her. "Will you go to prom with me?" For a second, I thought I knew exactly what would happen. Ava would smile. She would say yes. Everyone would cheer. The quarterback and the prom queen would become the couple everyone talked about. The story would make sense. Then Ava stood up. And she said, "No." The cafeteria went completely silent. Mason's smile disappeared. He actually looked confused. What? Ava's expression didn't change. I said no. Someone dropped a fork. Nobody moved. Mason slowly stood up. Ava, come on. I'm serious. His face turned slightly red. But why? That was the question everyone wanted answered. Why would Ava Mitchell reject Mason Blake? She could have anyone. She looked around the room. And then her eyes stopped. On me. My heart immediately started beating faster. No, that couldn't be right. There were hundreds of people in that cafeteria. Maybe she was looking at someone behind me. I turned slightly. Nobody was there. When I looked back, she was still staring at me. Then Ava said something that changed my entire world. I'm already waiting for someone else. The cafeteria erupted. Everyone started talking at once. Who? Is she dating someone? From another school? Mason got rejected? Mason looked in my direction. And for one terrifying second, I thought everyone would figure it out. But then someone shouted from the other side of the room, and everyone turned away. I immediately looked down. Because there was one thing I knew. A girl like Ava Mitchell did not choose a guy like me. Not really. By the end of the day, the entire school knew about Mason's rejection. The rumors multiplied every hour. Some people said Ava was secretly dating a college athlete. Some said she had a childhood boyfriend. Some said she was just trying to make Mason jealous. Nobody said my name. And honestly, I preferred it that way. Because if people thought Ava had chosen me, they would laugh. Not because I was terrible. I wasn't. I had good grades. I played guitar. I designed half the posters around school. I wasn't a loser. I just wasn't someone people noticed. There was a difference. The next morning, I opened my locker and found an envelope inside. My name was written on the front. Ethan. I looked around. Nobody was watching. I opened it. Inside was a small piece of paper. Meet me after school. The auditorium. Please. Ava, I stared at the note. For almost a full minute. My first thought was that it was a mistake. Maybe there was another Ethan. Maybe she needed help with a project. Maybe she wanted me to design something. That was realistic. Ava needing my talent made sense. Ava liking me didn't. I folded the note and put it in my pocket. I told myself I wouldn't go. I lasted until lunch. Then I found myself standing outside the auditorium after school. I hated that my feet had made the decision before my brain. The door opened. Ava stepped out. And for the first time, I noticed something strange. She looked nervous. Ava Mitchell. The girl who could speak in front of 500 students without shaking. The girl who handled arguments like a lawyer. The girl who always knew what to say. She looked nervous because of me. Ethan. Hey. A small smile appeared on her face. You came. You asked me to. For some reason, that answer made her smile bigger. She opened the door. Come inside. I walked in. Then I stopped. The entire auditorium had been transformed. The stage was covered with lights. There were paintings hanging everywhere. And in the center was a giant blue and gold backdrop. I recognized it immediately. Because I had designed it 2 years ago. For the spring festival. You kept that? Ava looked surprised. Of course. I touched the edge of the painting. I thought nobody liked it. Her expression changed. Ethan. I looked at her. She walked closer. I don't think you understand something. What? She took a breath. You keep saying nobody notices you. She looked around the empty auditorium. But I do. The room suddenly felt smaller. Ava reached into her bag. She pulled out a notebook. Open it. I did. And my breath stopped. Inside were copies of my drawings. Every sketch I had posted online. Every design I thought disappeared after people scrolled past. She had saved them. There were notes beside them. This one feels like home. This one is my favorite. You made this when nobody asked you to. That's why it matters. I looked at her. Ava, she looked away. Almost shy. I've wanted to tell you for a long time. My heartbeat became louder. Then she said, Mason wasn't the person I was waiting for. She looked back at me. It was you. I didn't know what to say. That was probably the first time in my life I had ever been speechless around Ava Mitchell. Usually, I was the quiet one, the listener, the person standing beside the conversation instead of being part of it. But now the most admired girl in Westbridge High was standing in front of me, telling me that she had been waiting for me. Not Mason. Not some popular guy. Me. That doesn't make sense, I finally said. Ava tilted her head slightly. What doesn't? You. She smiled a little. That's a pretty vague answer. I looked down at the notebook in my hands. You're Ava Mitchell. And you're Ethan Carter. That's exactly my point. She frowned. What point? I laughed quietly. The point is that people like you don't usually notice people like me. For the first time since I had met her, I saw something flash across her face. Not anger. Not disappointment. Something closer to hurt. People like me? I realized I had said the wrong thing. I didn't mean no. I know what you meant. She walked over to the edge of the stage and sat down. After a second, she patted the space beside her. I hesitated. Then I sat. The auditorium was quiet. For once, there were no crowds around Ava. No classmates asking for favors. No teachers needing help. No phones recording her every move. Just us. You know what everyone thinks about me? She asked. I shrugged. That you're perfect. She laughed. A real laugh. Not the kind she gave during student council meetings. The funny thing is, everyone thinks being popular means people know you. She looked down at her hands. But most people only know the version of me they created. I listened. My parents love telling people their daughter is successful. My teachers love telling people I'm responsible. My classmates love telling people I'm the girl who has everything. She smiled faintly. But nobody asks if I'm tired. I looked at her. I guess I never thought about that. Most people don't. Her eyes moved toward me. But you did. I didn't know what she meant. I did? Yes. She pointed at the stage. 2 years ago, after the spring festival, everyone was talking about how amazing the decorations looked. I remembered. That was your design. I nodded. Yeah. Do you remember what happened after? I searched my memory. The festival had been a huge success. Everyone had taken pictures. The principal had congratulated the student council. The theater club had received praise. No, Ava smiled. Of course you don't. She looked almost amused. You spent the entire night fixing things for everyone else. The lights broke, the microphone stopped working, and someone spilled paint on the entrance sign. I laughed. That sounds about right. And when everything was finally done, everyone went to celebrate. Yeah, but you stayed. I looked at her. Why? Because nobody had cleaned the storage room. I shrugged. Someone had to. Ava stared at me. That's what I mean. I didn't answer. You never did things because people were watching. Her voice became softer. You did them because they needed to be done. For some reason, That meant more to me than any compliment I had ever received. Because she wasn't complimenting something I had achieved. She was noticing who I was. And that was different. The next morning, I walked into school feeling like I had stepped into a different universe. Because Ava Mitchell waved at me. Not a polite wave. Not the kind you gave someone you barely knew. A real wave. Like she was happy to see me. And apparently, everyone noticed. My friend Noah almost dropped his backpack. Did Ava Mitchell just wave at you? I kept walking. Maybe. No, he grabbed my shoulder. Ethan. What? She waved at you. Yes, Noah. I was there. No, you don't understand. He looked around dramatically. She waved at you like you were someone important. I rolled my eyes. You're being weird. I'm being realistic. Noah had been my best friend since freshman year. He was one of the few people who never treated me like background noise. He lowered his voice. What happened yesterday? Nothing. Nothing? Nothing. He stared at me. You're terrible at lying. Before I could answer, someone called my name. Ethan. I turned. Ava was standing there, with 2 coffees. The hallway immediately became quieter. Because when Ava appeared, people noticed. She walked toward me and handed me one. Vanilla cold brew. I blinked. How did you know I drink this? She looked confused. You always buy one before first period. I stared. You noticed that? A small smile appeared. Ethan. She lowered her voice. I notice a lot of things. Noah looked between us. Then he slowly backed away. I suddenly remembered I have somewhere else to be. He walked away before I could stop him. I looked at Ava. You scared him. Good. I laughed. You're intimidating. Only when people annoy me. Am I annoying you? She looked at me. And the answer came instantly. Know something about the way she said it made my heart beat faster. Over the next few weeks, something changed. I still didn't understand what was happening. But Ava started appearing in my life. Not dramatically. Not like some movie scene. Just little things. She saved me a seat during student council meetings even though I wasn't on the council. She asked for my opinion before making decisions. She remembered small details I forgot I had ever told her. Once, during lunch, I mentioned that I missed my mom's homemade cookies because she had been working late. The next day, Ava walked into school carrying a small container. For you. I looked inside. Cookies. I stared at them. You made these? She looked away. My grandmother's recipe. You baked? Don't sound so surprised. I'm just saying, I thought you were more of an expensive bakery person. She laughed. I can like homemade things. I smiled. Why are you doing this? The question came out before I could stop it. Ava became quiet. Doing what? Being nice to me. Her expression changed. Like she couldn't believe I was asking. Ethan. Yeah? Have you ever considered that maybe I'm not being nice? I froze. What? She stepped closer. Maybe I just like being around you. For a second, the entire hallway disappeared. Then the bell rang. Students started moving around us. Ava smiled. See you after class. And she walked away, leaving me standing there with a container of cookies and a completely confused heart. Because the more time I spent with Ava Mitchell, the more I started wondering if maybe I had been wrong all along. Maybe she wasn't the girl out of my league. Maybe I was the one who never realized she had been walking toward me the entire time. After that day, things between Ava and me became impossible to ignore. Not because she suddenly started making huge gestures. Actually, it was the opposite. It was the little things. The things nobody else noticed. Except me. And maybe that was the problem. Because the more I noticed, the harder it became to pretend Ava Mitchell was just being friendly. One Monday morning, I arrived at school 10 minutes before the first bell. I usually did that because the art room was empty, and I liked having some quiet time before the day started. But when I opened the door, someone was already inside. Ava. She was sitting at one of the tables, looking through a stack of papers. I stopped. What are you doing here? She looked up and smiled. Waiting for you. My brain immediately stopped working. You came to the art room before school? Yes. Why? She looked at me like the answer was obvious. Because you're here. That should not have affected me as much as it did. But it did. I put my backpack down and tried to act normal. You know, most people spend their mornings somewhere with sunlight, right? She laughed. You say that like you're not the person who hides in here every day. I don't hide. You absolutely hide. I opened my mouth to argue. Then I realized she was right. Ava smiled like she had just won. I knew it. You enjoy proving me wrong too much. Only because you're usually wrong. I laughed. And for a moment, I forgot she was Ava Mitchell. The girl everyone admired. The girl everyone wanted. She was just Ava. The girl who teased me. The girl who remembered my coffee order. The girl who sat beside me before anyone else arrived. A week later, the school held the annual spring festival. Every club had a booth. Every team had activities. And somehow, I ended up helping Ava organize the entire event. I still didn't know how that happened. You're not even on student council, I reminded her while we carried decorations across the field. I know. Then why am I doing council work? She looked at me. Because you're good at it. That's not a reason. It is to me. Again, she said things like that so casually. Like she didn't realize what they did to me. We reached the main stage. A group of students were arguing about the design. Mason was there. Of course he was. He noticed Ava immediately. Hey, Ava. His smile was the same confident smile he always wore. The one that made everyone think he couldn't lose. You should let my team handle the stage setup. We know how to make things look good. Ava didn't even hesitate. No, Mason blinked. No, I already chose someone. His eyes moved toward me, and I immediately knew what he was thinking. Seriously? Him? Mason looked back at Ava. You're trusting Ethan with this? I felt my jaw tighten. Before I could respond, Ava stepped forward. Yes. Her voice was calm. But more importantly, I trust Ethan. The way she said my name made everyone around us quiet. Mason forced a laugh. I'm just saying, there are people here who actually know how to get attention. Ava looked at him. And there are people here who don't need attention to be valuable. Nobody said anything. Mason walked away. I looked at Ava. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? She stared at me for a second. Then she said quietly, because I hate when people make you feel smaller than you are. I didn't know how to answer that. Nobody had ever protected my confidence before. Most people didn't even know I needed protecting. That afternoon, while we were hanging lights, Ava climbed onto a small ladder to reach the decorations. Careful, I said. She looked down. Are you worried about me? No, she raised an eyebrow. You answered too quickly. I sighed. Yes. A smile appeared on her face. I knew it. You're impossible. And you like that. I looked away. Because unfortunately, she was right. Ava reached for another string of lights. Then the ladder moved slightly. Before I even thought about it, I grabbed her hand. She froze. So did I. For a second, neither of us moved. Her fingers were warm. Her expression changed. Not the confident expression everyone knew. Something softer. Something only I seemed to see. You always do that, she whispered. Do what? Take care of everyone. I looked at our hands. I just don't want people getting hurt. Ava looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. That's exactly why I like you. My heart skipped. What? She immediately looked away. Nothing. No, you said I said nothing. For once, Ava Mitchell looked embarrassed. And somehow that made her even more beautiful. That night, I received a message from Ava. Ava, are you going to the festival dance? I stared at the screen. Me, probably not. Ava, why? Me, I don't really belong there. The typing bubble appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, Ava, who told you that? I didn't answer. Because the truth was simple. Nobody had to tell me. I had spent years watching people like Ava stand in the center of every room. And people like me stand at the edge. A few seconds later, another message arrived. Ava, Ethan. Me, yeah? Ava, if you're not there, I'm not going. I stared at the message. My first thought was that she was joking. But then another message appeared. Ava, I mean it. For the first time, I wondered something dangerous. Maybe Ava Mitchell wasn't just being kind. Maybe she really did choose me. And that possibility scared me more than anything else. Because wanting something was easy. Believing you could have it was the hard part. I went to the spring festival dance. Not because I suddenly believed I belonged there. I went because Ava asked me. That was the difference. When I arrived at the gym that night, I almost turned around. Everyone looked exactly like I expected. The football players were gathered near the entrance. The cheerleaders were taking pictures. Students were dressed like they were attending some kind of celebrity event instead of a school dance. And then there was me. A simple black shirt. A pair of jeans. The same Ethan Carter everyone always walked past. I stood near the wall for a few minutes, wondering if I had made a mistake. Then I heard my name. Ethan. I turned around. Ava was walking toward me. And for a second, I forgot how to breathe. She was wearing a dark blue dress. Nothing exaggerated. Nothing that looked like she was trying to impress anyone. But somehow, everyone in the room noticed her. Of course they did. She was Ava. Except tonight, she wasn't looking at everyone else. She was looking at me. You came. I smiled awkwardly. You told me not to skip it. She looked relieved. I was worried you wouldn't listen. I usually don't. That's not true. She stepped closer. You listen when it matters. I didn't know why a simple sentence from her could affect me so much. Maybe because Ava didn't say things randomly. When she said something, she meant it. The night went better than I expected. Ava introduced me to people I barely knew. She didn't introduce me as the guy helping with decorations. She didn't introduce me as the artist. She simply said, "This is Ethan." Like my name was enough. And somehow, with her beside me, it was. But I noticed something. A lot of people noticed us too. Especially Mason. He stood across the gym with his teammates, watching. I tried not to care. But then he walked over. Having fun? His tone was polite. Too polite. Ava immediately noticed. Mason. He smiled. Relax. I'm just talking. His eyes moved to me. I'm surprised you came, man. I looked at him. What does that mean? He shrugged. Nothing. But everyone knew it meant something. Ava stepped between us. Mason. What? You need to stop. His smile disappeared. Stop what? Acting like you're the only person who gets to decide who belongs here. The people around us became quiet. Mason looked at her. You're really choosing this? Ava didn't hesitate. Yes. He looked at me. Then back at her. I still don't understand. That's okay. Her voice was calm. You don't have to. Mason walked away. I watched him leave. Then I looked at Ava. You just rejected the most popular guy in school twice. She shrugged. He wasn't the right person. I smiled. And I am? She looked at me. There was no hesitation. Yes. For the rest of the night, I forgot about everything. I danced. I laughed. I actually felt like I belonged. And that was because of Ava. But then something happened. Something small. Something I probably shouldn't have cared about. Near the end of the night, I saw Ava talking to Mason. They were standing outside the gym doors. Just the two of them. I couldn't hear what they were saying. I told myself not to assume anything. But then Mason handed her something. A small box. Ava looked surprised. Then she accepted it. My chest tightened. I looked away. Maybe I had been wrong. Maybe I was just the person she felt comfortable around. Maybe she wanted to prove she could reject Mason. Maybe I was part of some story where she showed everyone she didn't care about popularity. But after that? What happened? People like Ava eventually chose people like Mason. Not people like me. The next Monday, everything changed. Not because Ava did something wrong. Because I started protecting myself. I stopped waiting outside the art room before class. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. I stopped looking for signs that maybe she liked me. Because hoping was dangerous. And I had spent enough time wanting something I couldn't have. Ava noticed immediately. Of course she did. She always noticed. At lunch, she sat across from me. You're avoiding me. I looked up. No, I'm not. She stared. I sighed. Okay, maybe a little. Why? I hesitated. Because how could I explain? How could I tell the most amazing girl in school that I was afraid she would eventually realize she made a mistake? I just think maybe we should slow down. Her expression changed. Slow down? Yeah. Why? I looked at my lunch. Because I don't want to misunderstand things. The silence hurt. Ava lowered her voice. Ethan. Yeah? Did I make you think you were temporary? I didn't answer. And somehow, my silence answered for me. She looked hurt. Really hurt. I never wanted you to feel that way. I know. But I did. And that was the problem. A few days passed. Ava tried. She texted me. She waited for me after class. She asked if I wanted to work on prom decorations together. But something had changed. Not because I liked her less. Because I liked her too much. Then one afternoon, I saw a poster outside the main office. It was a list of students accepted into different colleges. And there it was. My name. A scholarship offer. A chance to attend a university 3 hours away. The same university I had dreamed about. I stared at the paper. A new life. A fresh start. Maybe that was what I needed. That evening, I filled out the acceptance form. I didn't tell Ava. Because if I was leaving anyway, maybe it was better to leave before I became another person she eventually forgot. The next morning, Ava found me near my locker. You're leaving? I froze. How did you know? She held up the paper. My acceptance form. You were really going to leave without telling me? I looked away. I didn't think it mattered. Her eyes widened. Ethan. I had never heard my name sound like that. Like I had actually heard her. Why do you keep deciding for me what I feel? I looked at her. What? She stepped closer. You decided I couldn't like you. Silence. You decided you weren't important. Another step. You decided leaving was easier. Her eyes became red. But you never asked me what I wanted. And for the first time I realized something. Maybe I wasn't the only one afraid. Maybe Ava Mitchell had been scared too. I expected Ava to be angry. Maybe disappointed. Maybe she would walk away and decide I wasn't worth the trouble. That was what people usually did. When things became complicated, they chose the easier option. But Ava didn't leave. She stood there in front of my locker, holding the acceptance form in her hand, looking at me like she was trying to understand how I could possibly think leaving was the right answer. Say something, she whispered. I looked away. What do you want me to say? The truth. I laughed softly. The truth is that you're Ava Mitchell. Her eyebrows tightened. And I'm Ethan. She stared at me. Like those words bothered her. They're just names. Not at this school. The hallway around us was full of students. People walking by. People watching. But for some reason, it felt like we were completely alone. Ava, you have hundreds of people who want your attention. And eventually you're going to realize I'm not the person you thought I was. Her expression changed. Not because she agreed. Because she couldn't believe I believed that. Ethan. Her voice became quieter. I have spent 2 years trying to get you to realize exactly the opposite. I froze. 2 years? What? She took a breath. Then she looked around the hallway. Not here. Why? Because if I say what I want to say here, I won't be able to stop myself. That scared me more than anything. Because Ava Mitchell was never someone who lost control. We went to the empty classroom at the end of the hallway. The same classroom where the art club stored old supplies. Ava closed the door. Then she turned around. I need you to understand something. I nodded. When people look at me, they see a crown. I stayed quiet. They see the girl who wins everything. The girl who always knows what she wants. She smiled sadly. But nobody sees how many times I've been scared. I leaned against the desk. Scared of what? She looked at me. Being liked for the wrong reasons. That answer surprised me. I don't understand. Mason likes the idea of me. She looked down. He likes that we would look perfect together. Football captain and student council president. Everyone would talk about us. Then she looked back at me. But you never cared about any of that. I didn't say anything. Do you know what you did the first time we met? I thought back. I fixed a broken light? She smiled. Yes. And? You didn't know who I was. I frowned. Of course I knew who you were. No, she shook her head. You knew my name. That's different. I listened. You didn't ask for a picture. You didn't try to impress me. You didn't suddenly become someone else because I was standing there. Her voice softened. You just treated me like a person. And suddenly, I understood. For everyone else, Ava was the prom queen. The dream girl. The person they wanted something from. But with me? She was just Ava. Then why didn't you tell me? The question came out before I could stop it. She looked confused. Tell you what? That you like me. A small smile appeared. I tried. When? She looked almost offended. Ethan. What? I literally rejected the most popular guy in school in front of everyone. I looked away. That doesn't prove anything. Her mouth opened. Then she laughed. A little frustrated. A guy publicly asks me to prom, and I say no because I'm waiting for someone else. Yeah. You looked at me. I thought you were looking past me. She covered her face with her hands. Oh my God. I couldn't help laughing. What? You're impossible. You're the one who liked me. Exactly. She stepped closer. That's why I know how impossible you are. For the first time in days, we both laughed. The tension disappeared. But then Ava's expression became serious again. Ethan. Yeah? Are you really leaving? I looked down. I don't know. Yes, you do. She wasn't angry. She sounded scared. And that was something I had never seen before. Ava Mitchell was scared of losing me. The next few days were different. Everyone noticed. Especially Noah. You two had a fight. I looked at him. How do you know? He rolled his eyes. Because Ava Mitchell hasn't smiled at anyone for 3 days. I looked away. She's busy. No, Noah shook his head. She's worried. I didn't answer. Because I knew. And that was the problem. Knowing Ava cared made leaving harder. Friday afternoon, I went to the football field to take photos for the school website. The team was practicing. Mason was there. He noticed me. For once, he didn't look arrogant. He walked over. Can we talk? I almost said no, but something in his expression stopped me. Okay. He looked toward the field. You know, I hated you at first. That surprised me. Really? He laughed. Yeah. Why? Because Ava looked at you differently. I didn't know how to respond. Mason continued. I spent 2 years trying to get her attention. He shook his head. And then you show up without even trying. I looked at him. Mason, I'm not saying we're friends. I almost smiled. Good. He laughed. But I understand now. He looked serious. She never wanted the guy everyone noticed. A pause. She wanted the guy who noticed her. Those words stayed with me. Because maybe that was the thing I had never understood. Ava didn't choose me because she didn't have other options. She chose me because she had every option. And still chose me. That night, I received a message. Ava, come to the auditorium tomorrow. Me, why? Ava, because I'm done letting you believe you're just someone I almost chose. I stared at the message. Then another one appeared. Ava, I need everyone to know the truth. My heart started beating faster. Everyone? What was she planning? I barely slept that night. Not because I was nervous about seeing Ava. Because I was nervous about what she meant. I need everyone to know the truth. Those words kept replaying in my head. What truth? That she liked me? That she had been waiting for me? That I had somehow become important to the most admired girl in school? It sounded impossible. But then again, so did everything that had happened over the past few weeks. Ava rejecting Mason. Ava saving my drawings. Ava remembering every little thing about me. Ava looking scared when I talked about leaving. Maybe impossible was just something I had gotten used to calling things I didn't understand. The next afternoon, I arrived at the auditorium. And immediately, I knew something was different. There were people everywhere. Students. Teachers. The student council members. The dance team. Even the football players were there. My first thought was simple. I should leave. This was too much. I had spent my entire life avoiding attention. And now I was standing in the middle of it. Then Ava walked onto the stage. The entire room became quiet. She was wearing a simple white dress. No crown. No stage makeup. No perfect image. Just Ava. And somehow, that made her look more confident than ever. Her eyes found mine immediately. She smiled. A small smile. The kind she only gave me. Thank you all for coming. She stood behind the microphone. I know everyone has questions. A few people laughed. She smiled. Especially after what happened with Mason. Everyone looked toward him. Mason crossed his arms but didn't look angry. He actually looked like he was waiting. Ava continued. For a long time, people have told me what kind of person I should choose. She paused. They told me I should choose someone popular. A few students nodded. Someone who looks perfect beside me. She took a breath. But they were wrong. The room became completely silent. Because the person who made me feel most like myself was never the person standing in the spotlight. My heart started beating faster. I knew where this was going. But I still couldn't believe it. Ava looked directly at me. Ethan Carter. Hearing my name through the auditorium speakers felt unreal. Everyone turned. Every single person. I wanted to disappear. But then Ava smiled. And somehow, I didn't. Come here. I froze. The old version of me would have stayed where I was. The old version of me would have convinced himself he didn't belong. But this time I walked forward. When I reached the stage, Ava handed me the microphone. I stared at it. What am I supposed to say? She smiled. Anything. That's terrifying. She laughed. A real laugh. The whole room saw it. They saw the Ava nobody else got to see. I looked at the crowd. Then back at her. I don't really know why I'm here. A few people smiled. I mean, I know why technically. I looked at Ava. But I never expected someone like her to choose someone like me. The room was quiet. I spent a lot of time thinking I wasn't enough. Ava's expression softened. But she made me realize something. I looked at everyone. Being noticed isn't what makes someone important. Then I looked at her. Having someone who truly sees you does. For a moment, Nobody spoke. Then someone started clapping. Noah. Of course. Then another person. Then another. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was filled with applause. I had never experienced anything like that. Not because people were clapping, because for once I wasn't invisible. After the assembly ended, everyone surrounded us. People asked questions. Some were shocked. Some were happy. Some clearly couldn't understand how it happened. One of the cheerleaders smiled at Ava. You really rejected Mason for Ethan? Ava looked at me, then back at her. Yes. Why? Ava didn't hesitate. Because Ethan is the only person who never tried to be someone else around me. The cheerleader smiled. That's actually kind of adorable. Ava rolled her eyes. Don't tell anyone. Too late. Later that afternoon, I found Ava outside near the football field. The sun was setting. For once, there were no people around. Just us. You really did that, I said. She looked at me. Did what? Announced it to the entire school. She shrugged. I wanted you to know. I already knew. No, she stepped closer. You knew I like you. She pointed at my chest. But you didn't know you were chosen. That sentence stayed with me. Because she was right. I had spent so much time comparing myself to everyone else. Mason. The athletes. The popular guys. I forgot the most important thing. Ava didn't pick me because I was the best version of someone else. She picked me because I was Ethan. I have something for you. She reached into her bag. I expected maybe a note. Maybe a picture. Instead, she handed me a small envelope. I opened it. Inside was a photo. It was from 2 years ago. The spring festival. I was standing on the stage fixing the lights. I didn't even know someone had taken that picture. I looked at her. You kept this? She smiled. Of course. Why? She looked embarrassed. Because that was the first time I realized I like you. I stared. Seriously? Yes. What did you like about me? She thought for a second. Then smiled. You looked happy. That's it? No, she stepped closer. You looked like someone who didn't need anyone's approval to be himself. Her voice became softer. And I wanted to know someone like that. For the first time, I stopped wondering if I deserved Ava. Because maybe love wasn't about finding someone who seemed perfect. Maybe it was about finding someone who made you believe you were worth choosing. Ava reached for my hand. This time, I didn't hesitate. I held it. And when we walked back toward the school together, everyone saw. But for once, I didn't care about being noticed. Because the only person whose attention mattered was already holding my hand. After that day, everything changed. Not in the way people expected. A lot of people thought dating Ava Mitchell would turn me into someone completely different. They imagined I would suddenly become popular. They imagined I would start sitting with the football team, going to every party, and becoming another person everyone wanted to know. But Ava never wanted that. She never tried to change me. If anything, she made sure I stayed exactly who I was. You know you're allowed to be famous now, Noah joked one afternoon while we were sitting outside the library. I looked at him. I'm not famous. He pointed across the courtyard. Half the school just looked over because Ava laughed at something you said. I glanced over. Sure enough, a few people were watching us. But Ava didn't care. She was sitting beside me, stealing fries from my lunch tray like she had been doing it forever. You're taking my food again, I said. She looked innocent. I'm sharing. You ate most of it. That's still sharing. I laughed. This was the part nobody else understood. Everyone saw Ava Mitchell, the prom queen. The girl who stood on stage. The girl who had hundreds of people cheering for her. But I saw the girl who made terrible jokes when she was tired. The girl who hated thunderstorms. The girl who secretly listened to old songs from the 80s because her father loved them. The girl who got nervous before every important speech even though nobody believed it. The girl behind the crown. And I think that was why she chose me. Because I wasn't in love with the crown. I was in love with her. A week before graduation, Ava and I sat on the empty football field after school. The sky was turning orange. She was lying on the grass, looking up at the clouds. Are you nervous? I asked. About graduation? She nodded. A little. I smiled. You? Nervous? She turned her head. Don't act surprised. I'm just saying, you're Ava Mitchell. She sighed. There you go again. What? Putting me on some impossible level. I looked at her. You know everyone thinks you're perfect. She sat up. And you know everyone is wrong. We were quiet for a moment. Then she asked, Are you still going to that university? I knew what she meant. The one 3 hours away. The one I almost left for. I looked down. I'm not sure. She became serious. Ethan. I know. No, she sat closer. I need you to know something. What? I don't want you to stay because of me. That surprised me. You don't? No, she shook her head. I love that you have dreams. I love that you're someone who wants to build a life. She smiled softly. But I want to be part of that life. Not the reason you stopped living it. That was Ava. Even when she loved someone, she never wanted to own them. She wanted to stand beside them. That night, I found something in my locker. Another envelope. I smiled before opening it, because I already knew who it was from. Inside was a letter. Not a short note. A real letter. Ethan, I know you think I chose you recently. But I didn't. I chose you the first time you made me feel normal. I chose you when you stayed behind after the festival because nobody else cleaned up. I chose you when you gave your umbrella to a freshman who forgot theirs. I chose you when everyone was trying to impress me, and you were the only person who asked if I was okay. I chose you before you ever noticed me. I sat there reading it again and again. Then I realized something. Ava had been telling the truth. She had never suddenly fallen for me. She had been falling for me quietly. The whole time. The next day, I found her near the auditorium. The same place where everything started. You knew I was going to read that letter, I said. She smiled. Yes. You planned this? Maybe. I shook my head. You're impossible. And you like that. I laughed. She looked at me. Then became quiet. Ethan. Yeah? There's something I never told you. What? She looked toward the stage. When Mason asked me to prom, I waited. I already knew I would say no. I know. No, you don't. She smiled. Because before he asked me, he came to talk to me. I frowned. He did? He told me everyone expected us to be together. She paused. And I realized something. What? I didn't feel excited. I looked at her. I felt trapped. That surprised me. Why? Because everyone was choosing him for me. Her eyes met mine. But nobody had ever asked who I wanted. She stepped closer. And the answer was always you. I didn't know what to say. So I did the only thing that felt right. I held her hand. Ava smiled. You know, for someone who talks so little, you actually say a lot. How? Because you always show up. That sentence meant everything. Because that was who I was. I wasn't the loudest person. I wasn't the most popular. I wasn't the guy everyone noticed first. But I was the guy who stayed. And Ava had noticed. On graduation day, everyone was dressed in caps and gowns. Families filled the seats. Teachers called names. Students celebrated. And when Ava walked across the stage, everyone cheered. Of course they did. She was their prom queen, their student council president, their perfect girl. But when she came back down, she didn't go toward her friends. She came toward me. In front of everyone. She grabbed my hand. Ready? I smiled. For what? She looked at me. For the next chapter. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Because the girl everyone wanted had chosen me. A year ago, if someone had told me I would be standing at graduation with Ava Mitchell holding my hand, I would have laughed. Not because it was impossible. Because it sounded like something that happened to someone else. Someone more confident. Someone more interesting. Someone who belonged in Ava's world. But that was the thing I finally learned. I had spent so much time believing I wasn't enough for her that I never stopped to ask if maybe she had been waiting for someone exactly like me. 3 months after graduation, Ava and I were sitting in a small coffee shop near campus. It had become our place. Not because it was expensive. It wasn't. Not because it was popular. Most students didn't even know it existed. It was our place because the first time we came here, Ava spilled her drink on my notebook and looked more terrified than when she gave her graduation speech. I ruined your drawings, she had said. You ruined one page. It was an important page. It was a coffee stain. She looked serious. It was a meaningful coffee stain. I laughed so hard that day that everyone in the shop looked at us. And Ava loved that. Because for once, nobody was looking at her because she was the prom queen. They were looking because she was happy. You're smiling again, Ava said. I looked up from my laptop. What? You do that now. Do what? Smile without realizing it. I shook my head. That sounds fake. It's not. She reached across the table and tapped my notebook. You used to draw people from a distance. I looked at the sketches. She was right. Before Ava, most of my drawings were about people who looked lonely. People standing in crowds but feeling separate. Now, She smiled. Now you draw moments. I looked at her. You notice that? She gave me a look. Ethan. I laughed. Right. Of course she noticed. She always noticed. A few weeks later, we returned to Westbridge High for the alumni event. Walking through those hallways felt strange. The same lockers. The same classrooms. The same trophy cases. But everything felt different. Because I was different. No longer the guy standing against the wall. No longer the guy wondering if he belonged. Ava squeezed my hand as we walked. Are you okay? I nodded. Yeah. You're quiet. I'm just thinking. About what? I looked around. About how much I missed. She stopped walking. What do you mean? I smiled slightly. I spent years thinking nobody noticed me. Her expression softened. And I was wrong. Ava smiled. Very wrong. I laughed. Yeah. She leaned closer. Do you know the funniest part? What? You were the only person in school who thought you were invisible. I frowned. What? She looked around the hallway. Your teachers always talked about you. The art club loved you. Noah talks about you like you're his brother. She smiled. You were never invisible, Ethan. I looked at her. You just needed someone to remind you. That evening, we attended the alumni dance. It wasn't as big as prom. No huge decorations. No crowns. No competition. Just old friends, music, and memories. At one point, Ava and I stood near the dance floor. A group of former classmates walked by. One of them smiled. You know, we still talk about that day. I laughed. What day? The day Ava rejected Mason. Ava covered her face. Please don't. Everyone laughed. The girl looked at me. But honestly, we all thought she was crazy. I smiled. Thanks. No, I mean it in a good way. She looked at Ava. Because everyone thought she would choose the obvious guy. Then she looked back at me. But she chose the right one. Ava smiled. And this time, she didn't need to explain anything. Later that night, Ava and I stood outside under the lights. The same kind of lights we had hung together before prom. Funny how everything came back around. You know something? Ava said. What? I never told you my favorite memory from high school. I looked at her. I thought it was prom. She shook her head. No, then what? She smiled. The day you helped me fix the stage lights. I laughed. That? Yes. Why? Because that was the first day I realized something. What? She stepped closer. That I didn't want everyone to notice me. She looked at me. I wanted one person to really see me. My heart softened. And I did? Yes. She smiled. You did. I thought about all the moments I had misunderstood. The cafeteria. The note in my locker. The coffee she bought me. The cookies. The assembly. The letter. All those times I thought I was just lucky. I wasn't. Ava had been choosing me long before I had the courage to choose her. Years later, people would probably still remember the story. The prom queen who rejected the star athlete. The girl everyone expected to choose the most popular guy. But that wasn't the real story. The real story was about a girl who had everything everyone wanted and a boy who never realized he was the thing she wanted most. Ava leaned against me. Still can't believe you almost left. I smiled. Still can't believe you waited. She looked up. I would have waited longer. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Yes. How long? She thought for a moment, then smiled. Until you finally understood. I laughed. And if I never did? She took my hand. Then I would have found another way. I looked at her. The prom queen chasing the unnoticed guy? Exactly. That sounds backwards. She smiled. No, she squeezed my hand. It sounds perfect. And maybe she was right. Because sometimes the person everyone is looking at isn't the person who matters most. Sometimes the person standing quietly in the corner is the one who has been waiting for someone to finally see him. And sometimes the girl everyone wants chooses him. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.